Everybody, Steve Simonson coming to you again from Awesomers.com. The Awesomer podcast is live and ready for you. Awesomers.com is a place to kind of look it up and find all the details. Today I want to talk about kind of a common problem that we've seen really over the past nearly 30 years of business that I've been carrying on. I started my first business when I was 18, when I was first legally allowed to, and I recently just turned 48. That's 30 years in business. Now, technically, I started when I was almost 19, so there's a few months in between that probably shouldn't count, but I'm going to just round up for the benefit of easy math, if you will. So one of the things that we see commonly is there are scam artists, essentially, and they send messages to companies. And often those messages, they used to be disguised in like a Yellow Pages invoice. So in the old days, people used the Yellow Pages as a typical methodology for online marketing and lead generation and so forth. Since Yellow Pages have gone the way of the dodo, they have targeted other things. And a lot of those things tend to involve what appear to be legal compliance notices. So recently, we received a legal compliance notice. And the first thing that we noticed is that the envelope from the legal compliance was from Florida, and it was sent to our labor company, which is based in the state of Washington. And so we're like, well, we don't have any employees in Florida. We don't do any business in Florida. Why would Florida send us a message? And that's a fair question to ask, right? Why, in fact, would Florida send a message to us? The answer is they wouldn't. So already my spidey sense is tingling. All right, so the bottom line is when you get something, your spidey sense starts tingling, you got to start asking questions. In my case, as I said, the item came in from Florida. I don't know how well y'all could see that. It looks like it's reversed for those watching from home. But as soon as something is marked from Florida and it's to a Washington-based company about legal compliance, again, I'm wondering what's up. The other interesting thing is the reply that they kindly included was to the Filing Labor Compliance Department in Miami, Florida also. So this is another clue. When I actually looked at the document had some very interesting and I would say misleading details. So to describe it, I'm going to just share my screen for those of you who can watch at home, otherwise I'll just describe it. So at the very top right, it's got a very sophisticated looking barcode. Labor law compliance notice, it reads. Failure to comply with posting regulations can lead to fines up to $17,000. And then they quote these labor laws, which may or not be real and may or may not be relevant. In fact, they are real and they are relevant, but they're federal laws. And they are compliance notices about posting labor regulations within a company. I'll talk more about what it really means at the end. Then they show my company, Simonson in Duval, Washington, and the type of business, the name of the business, the type of company. And it really kind of looks like it's an official looking document, right? Because they know it's a Washington limited liability company. You know the status is active. And on the right, it's got the UBI number, which is the Universal Business Identification Number for the state of Washington. So it looks like they've got all of these inside government document IDs. And further, they've got an address to the left that says F. Labor Compliance Department. Now, the F has been abbreviated, which is a very interesting little detail. As you'll maybe recall from the envelope that they included, the self-addressed stamped envelope, it says Filing Labor Compliance Department. That's the name of their company. And so, anyway, I'm going to just carry on with the description of the rest of the document. Fundamentally, it's got a bunch of official-looking things. The notice date. Your business is required by federal law to keep these things up to date, even if you have just one employee. Pursuant to federal law, this and that. And they go through all this, and it just looks like it is going to scare the crap out of you if you don't get it right. And it goes further to show that if you don't respond by this date, you could have a problem. And it's only $84, to get this compliance done. So the entire point of this document is to look like a real live government document, but it is nothing of the sort. Now, the regulation they're quoting is real. if you have employees, even a single employee on that employee's, if it's a work premises, you're required by law to show certain federal compliance documents, which include things like minimum wage and other things that are to help employees if they have run into a jam with their employer. At the very bottom of the page, they say this little tiny disclosure, very small print, readable, but still small. Filing Labor Compliance Department is a non-government publisher of copyrighted compliance poster compilations, which are intended to assist employers in meeting their legal obligations under labor law posting regulations. If you're not 100% satisfied, simply return it within 30 days for a full refund. But fundamentally, my issue with this company is they're complete scam artists. Everything they're doing by showing a Washington Compliance Department address in Olympia, which is where the government is in this state. That's the state capital of Washington. So they're looking like the Labor Compliance Department if you just skip over the F dot. So that's absolutely misleading. They're showing my business identification number, and a lot of people might assume, oh gosh, where would they get it if they're not the government? They're showing the Washington Limited Liability Company details. These are all legitimate details, but they're also a matter of public record. So what happens is these types of companies, they troll around to all the states, they look for new business openings and filings, and then they send out these kind of troll notices, and they'll send these out annually. There's other variations of these types of schemes as well. You'll often find other, kind of misleading departments or misleading company names that are really, they're trying to scare the crap out of you and go, you know what, for 84 bucks, let me just get this behind me. And that's another check mark off my list. But I want to just call people's attention to this is a complete and utter sham. These people are not government people, even though they're acting like they're government compliance department. And they've gone so far as to make a P.O. box in Olympia, Washington, and calling it the F. Labor Compliance Department. Again, total scam artist. So every business owner should be aware there's people constantly trying to prey on your business. Don't let them do it. There's no point in allowing outsiders who have no vested interest in your company, and they have no interest in actually helping you. I would have a lot more empathy and probably even support of a company like this, who instead of trying to trick people into paying them for their product, that they came out and they said, hey, you know what? Here's a law. You may not be in compliance with it. We're going to help you get there. And you know what? Not only are we going to do it for this first time for some X amount of dollars, but you can go ahead and subscribe, and annually we'll just automatically send you a new one. These sorts of things really are important, and they really are something that we should have an easy button for as employers and business owners. But they have chosen a very, very deceptive method of marketing. And in something, my personal opinion, they're complete scam artists. So I would highly stay away from these types of companies and seek out the companies that will do a better job. So how do you solve this particular labor law compliance? You can go search for these types of display posters, the legal compliance poster, and you can find it on Amazon. You can find it all over the place. You can find it Office Depot, Staples, just any major place that sells business-related supplies for very inexpensive rates, certainly far less than $84. And they also will not try to scam you. They'll be honest and treat you right. So again, I want to just share with you guys, you are the prey, and there's a bunch of predators in the marketplace. There are a bunch of predators in the marketplace. Hopefully, as fellow awesomers, you can try to see all the way through these things and look. If something doesn't smell right, start to look in deeper. One of the core principles that I share and that I have talked about for many years is the idea of Occam's Razor. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about that right after we come back from the break. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back here. We're talking about, kind of the general philosophy of what is Occam's Razor. What does that mean? And to catch everybody up, my general interpretation of Occam's Razor is whatever the most likely solution is usually the most clear and evident solution, which is, I really butchered that translation. But basically, if something doesn't smell right and you think it's a scam, it's probably a scam. If you see something and you're like, this thing, whatever they're saying, it doesn't add up and my gut's telling me, that the most obvious answer is probably the right answer, is another way to say it, and perhaps more clear. And that's what the theory of Occam's razor is. So many times we say to ourselves, well, I don't know enough. We suffer from the self-proclaimed and often accurate imposter syndrome, where it's like, well, somebody else knows more than me at all times, so I should just listen to them. But when your gut is telling you something, it's really important to listen. And a lot of people don't realize that there's two sides of your brain. And one side is nonverbal. That's the side that has kind of a lot of the answers. And that side knows unequivocally this is the wrong thing to do, whatever the case may be. In my case, we had this fake labor law compliance notice. So I have the experience to know what to look for, but when your gut grabs you and says something doesn't smell right, that's the nonverbal side of your brain that's saying, this is not right. It can't turn those things into words to the other side of your brain that actually can put it into words and go, this is not right because of this reason or that reason. So when people talk about trusting their gut instinct, it's really trusting what their other side of their brain, the nonverbal side, has already worked out. It cannot be underestimated, the value of a gut feel when it comes to entrepreneurs. Often women call it female intuition. Whatever you want to call it is fine with me. It doesn't matter the name. It just matters that you follow that gut instinct. Now, doesn't mean we can't be wrong. It also doesn't mean that we know, everything from our guts without learning. But in general, when something doesn't smell right, it probably is not right. There's so many examples we could give of this type of situation. So Occam's razor, very, very important philosophy, and I highly recommend that you guys get on board with that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're talking a little bit more about my philosophy as it relates to the general principle of Occam's razor. Sometimes they also call it the law of parsimony, by the way. Other people pronounce it parsimony, but I have my own way of pronouncing stuff, and I often make up my own words as well. So you should ignore just about everything I say. The point of Occam's razor, again, is to try to give you a mental model that allows you to simplify your decision-making and trust your guts, basically, trust your instincts. So when you think about multiple answers, the answer with the fewest assumptions, the answer with the fewest leaps of faith should be selected. So again, the simplest solution is usually the correct solution. And it's interesting that, Occam's razor dates back to a guy who was basically named Occam, although he's William of Occam, which is 13th, 14th century time frame. And today we spell Occam's razor O-C-C-A-M. So if you want to look it up, Occam's razor, using that spelling. And one of the things that is interesting is he didn't call it Occam's razor. Other people referring to his work referred to it basically and started coining that phrase as Occam's razor. And the theology of it is to make sure that you make the simplest scientific explanation or factual-based explanations you possibly can without having to put in a bunch of unnecessary assumptions. And this applies to business every day. Don't forget that as business owners, we are entirely problem solvers. We're consumed by solving problems. That's our job. And so for everybody who says, gosh, I thought this was going to be easier, or, if I'm my own boss, why is it so hard? The reality is being the boss, being an entrepreneur means that you're just a problem solver full time. First, you try to solve a big picture problem on behalf of customers. So you found a problem they have and you developed a product or service to deal with that problem. And then you presented a life afterwards, after that problem's been solved, that they ended up buying. That's ultimately what you should sell, by the way, is the life after, not the product itself. So being in the business of problem solving means we're going to face problems regularly, recurringly. And it's unnecessary and it's unhelpful to find ourselves becoming confused or frustrated or even fatigued by problem solving. We're in business to solve problems. If there weren't problems, it would be easy and then anybody could do it. And so every time you kind of have a problem, you kind of give yourself another problem, and you can, kick yourself in the shin if you really want to feel pain, but otherwise go, all right, this is why I exist. This is what I'm meant to do. And then you go about your work and solving. when you're solving it, then you want to try to use, again, my principle, or not the principle that I started, but the principle that I subscribe to, which again is Occam's Razor. And that is all about trying to figure out what the simplest answer is, which is almost always the right answer. And we don't want to oversimplify this thing, but we do want to say that if the more you pare down the excess, the more likely you are to be the core fundamental truth that is leading you to the right decision. And even when you cannot describe to yourself in words, you can't articulate it, that's again because I think it's the right side of the brain that's the creative side, is nonverbal, and it can't transmit the verbal instructions to the other side of the brain to just articulate, here's the nature of the problem, here's why I think it, and here's what we're going to do about it. But it is sending you the vibe, that gut feel, as people call it, that says, something ain't right, don't do this, my spidey sense is tingling. Entrepreneurs have some of the best gut feels on the planet. And it's when you don't follow your gut, you end up in a lot more trouble. And I can give you lots of examples of me not following my gut and it costing me dearly. In some cases, tens of millions of dollars. So my recommendation to each of you, trust your gut. Study up on the principle of Occam's Razor and really think about the most simple solution is often the correct solution. And to peel away the fat and get right to the core of the issue. So that's it for today, really. I was definitely triggered by this fake labor law notice that I got sent by complete scam artists. Don't get sucked in. Don't be the prey. To be a fellow predator in the marketplace if you have to be, but don't be the prey. I'd rather not be predators. I'd rather earn and be in a market that exists, and I create demand based on delivering value versus having to be a predator and moving on to the next prey, right? We should have kind of long-term aspirations versus just one kill and be done. And that's so often what these types of scammy companies do. They want to just scam for as long as they can, and then they'll move on to the next scam. And in many ways, when you think about this labor law compliance notice, I'm sure they are very good at split testing. I have no doubt that they have multiple split tests. And my concept of, hey, here's a labor law, you need to be compliant with it. We know you're a new business, and we're going to make this super easy on you, and we'll even let you opt in for a multi-year subscription. I bet you that didn't test as well as a percentage. But the reality is, does that mean that their business is not better off overall in the long run? And I would argue that it's not better off overall. It's a ticking time bomb. Regardless of the fact they put a little tiny disclaimer at the bottom that they say, filing labor compliance as a non-governmental publisher, they're clearly trying to look like the government. They're definitely trying to scam people. And people do this all the time with contractors' licenses and all kinds of different governmental departments. They try to impersonate the government and scare you into doing something. And I would just say be extra careful and don't fall victim to these scumbags. So that's it for me, Steve Simonson. I hope you got something out of today. Don't forget to pass the word on to your friends. Subscribe, like, and you can even leave a review if you like. And I'll put you on my Christmas list. How about that? There's all the incentive that you need. And I don't mind incentivizing reviews. Yeah, positive or negative, I'll put you on my Christmas card list. Full disclosure, I have not sent Christmas cards ever in my whole life. So don't wait up if you don't get it. Thanks again, everybody. Talk to you soon.